hangout, our process hangout that is about porn. And in this discussion, we have again Ben with us from United States. Hi, Ben.
Hello.
And today we also have Roselle and Andrea from South Africa. Hi, guys.
Hi.
So in this Google Hangout, we're going to be discussing the connection between porn and pop culture and how porn has become a part of pop culture. And we find that this topic is quite timely because of the big hahoo there has been with Miley Cyrus's recent performance on the VMAs this weekend. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you probably haven't seen a lot of news these last couple of days because it's been literally everywhere. So guys, if you want to open up, what is your perspective on Miley Cyrus's performance and how is that connected to porn?
Well, I'll start. Well, I mean, if you look at the performance, basically just to give those viewers that haven't had a chance to view the video, it's basically just Miley coming out on stage. And in a nutshell, she does a lot of tongue pulling, lip licking, and she does also a thing called twerking in her performance, which I actually discovered yesterday when I did my research. It's based on the Afro-Caribbean culture where a woman basically, you know, crouches forward and shakes her ass provocatively at, you know, her admirers. And this is basically what Miley's whole expression was, you know, going on about within her VMA performance. She actually twerked on Robin Thicke, who she collaborated with in her performance at the end. And basically her whole expression was that of a porn star. And that is exactly what she, as an expression and statement of herself, was saying to young girls that admire her and follow her, and to women everywhere that's watching this, that this is okay and this is acceptable. So yeah, I mean, that's basically the gist of how that connects to pornography, is just the way she was dressed. She was in a nude-colored bikini at the end, and basically showing flesh, and just all of her moves, everything was just of a pornographic nature, and basically just sexually objectifying women in that performance.
So what I'd like to add to this, to start off this conversation, is the reason why we are discussing this is because within pornography, which we're going to be looking at in all our chats, there are various aspects behind why the pornography industry exists. And in this chat, one aspect of what we are discussing is the individual, and in this case, the young person, who is watching Miley Cyrus, who in their view as celebrity is seen as somebody more than somebody linked to money, status, fame. So all of these young people, from the time that she was Hannah Montana, they are looking towards her for absolute self-definition. And what she is not realizing, what she is busy doing in making that, as Roselle described, that absolute flaunting of I'm a porn star, she is programming the youngsters who are watching her to, from the youngest of ages, to within themselves accept that this is the role that they are going to be playing in the world. And even if you look at her performance where she's wearing little girl outfits and all kinds of things, the symbology behind what she's showing is that the younger and younger generations are going to relate to her gyrating her body on stage. So we're looking here at children who are not just 14, 15, 16, but now as young as 6, 7, 8 years, who are seeing that symbolic picture of her gyrating on stage with themselves, and they're going to relate to it, and they're going to be okay with transforming themselves into sexual objects.
Yeah, and I mean, she has been quite forward, as has other female pop artists, that she likes porn and she watches porn. So it's not a secret, and I mean, she's quite forward about it.
Yeah, and you know, to add to that, the reason why we are with this chat discussing specifically the pop culture is that the point of responsibility that is not coming through in these celebrities, that they love the attention and they love the money. They're not realizing that they are actually molding young people into what they're becoming. So we're looking at a dichotomy here of They're doing everything they need to do to become rich. And the point that has been realized is sexuality, because within the mental psyche of the human, what exists as one of the worst or most controlling obsessions has become sexuality. And within that, there's the darkest secret mind stuff that's coming up, and the music producers are tapping into it through psychology and human studies, and are then making the performers perform that out. Therefore, this cycle that is busy existent right now is for a very specific purpose, for them to make money. They know what they're doing, and they're not taking responsibility for it.
Yeah, I also wanted to also just mention and bring up that point of responsibility, because I mean, as an influential person, I mean, that's really what celebrities are. They just haven't realized it. And I think if you just look at the connection of specifically Miley Cyrus, I mean, she's got millions of fans. And if you look at her history, she used to be Hannah Montana. I mean, it was just the other day that my sister, who's 6 years younger than me, was watching Hannah Montana, and that was her favorite show. And these young girls were absolutely copying Hannah Montana's behaviorism and body language and what she's wearing, and, you know, the kind of language that she's speaking. So you've got that whole kind of child generation. Most of those kids are still children, and they are now seeing this Hannah Montana because they're connecting Miley Cyrus to Hannah Montana, and now they're seeing Miley, you know, express herself like this as a pornographic, sexually objectified object, which she's turned herself into for the media, as Andrea said, for fame and money and for ratings. I think it's a core point that needs to be, you know, grasped by these celebrities, is the point of responsibility, because, I mean, you're actually responsible because you are influencing, whether directly or indirectly, you're influencing so many beings' lives by what you are living as your expression. And, I mean, this is a vast point. I mean, they really have the outreach of millions of beings who absolutely would fall at their feet, you know, on any given day, just because of who they are and their history. So, I mean, celebrities, obviously, if we can obviously see it, that they disconnect themselves and separate themselves from that point of responsibility that they have towards their fans and their following. And, I mean, it's just going to result in absolute chaos and havoc. I mean, we're already seeing it today. You know, kids as young as 12 are getting pregnant, and, I mean, dressing up and trying to be older. I mean, I remember when I was young, I was trying to be older and, you know, play as if, you know, when I was 16 years old, playing and pretending as if I was 21. And I got all of these ideas from watching media and MTV and all these pop stars, and I wanted to be like them. So, I mean, celebrities have this responsibility, but they separate themselves from it, and it's going to create havoc if it's not realized soon.
In context to what you're saying here, there's probably a lot of people who would say, so what, you know, she's just expressing herself. You know, I saw that Justin Timberlake, for example, he was like, she's an adult now. What do you know? You know, it's the VMAs. What do you expect? And what we're also seeing is that porn is becoming, or you could say pornification, because it's not in that sense really about sexuality, because it's a very specific expression or a very specific performance that we see through porn. So what would you guys say to that comment that there's a lot of people who would say, so what? What's the problem? She can express herself how she wants to, or what's wrong with porn? You know, it's just fun. It's not real. Ben, do you have a perspective on that?
Well, yeah, I hear that a lot, like with people saying, oh, well, if they're 18, then it's legally acceptable. But, I mean, that's not really considering the full extent of what's going on. That's just kind of an excuse because on paper you can't technically punish someone for that. There's a whole bunch of other things going on with that, like what, for example, are young girls what kind of relationships are they going to develop when they approach sexuality that way towards guys, and what kind of relationships does that encourage guys to have towards young girls when, I mean, it's kind of cliche to say it's objectified, but that's like it's true. It dehumanizes the whole social experience.
Yeah, I see that that's actually a very important point. And also a thing within this is that pop culture is considered, it's just entertainment. You know, we're just sitting there in front of the TV and these images are just floating into us. We're just listening to these songs on the radio. We're just seeing all these billboards and commercials, and it's kind of like we believe that it's something happening on the sideline that doesn't influence us, that doesn't in any way impact our lives, because it's like a stream of information that isn't relevant. But the question is, when it's that much all the time, and especially for young children, how does it affect us? Do you guys have a perspective on that?
I mean, I believe it completely, subconsciously you're picking up those messages and you're being imprinted by that the whole time. That's a stimulus that you are seeing everywhere. And I mean, just talking about the point of sexuality and pornography, I mean, it's soft porn. Really, advertising uses soft porn. We separate it by saying, look, it's not pornography, but that's the starting. That's the mild soft porn, and that's how people start. And advertisers have latched onto this because they've realized that, when people are misdirected with this sexuality point, you can cash in on that point, boy. And we are continuously being, through media, through entertainment, television, through newspapers, everything around us, you continuously have that stimulus being imprinted into the youth. And that becomes so absolutely normal. I mean, for some people watching that VMA performance, they would probably not see what we're seeing because they have been so, kind of brainwashed basically by being so absorbed into these, impulses and stimulations from what's being given to everybody, that it's become normal. I mean, it's become part of, your integrated being, and through that become so absolutely accepted. And that's why you have people using these justifications of, well, she's 18, let her do what she's doing, but without realizing, but wait a minute, what she's doing and representing and saying, responsibility to her fans, is that actually okay? Because it's not what's best for all. It's not what's best for those young girls to go and copy this behavior and really compromise, really getting to know themselves as a living, practical expression of themselves, minus all of this brainwashing through the media, like Miley.
Yeah, and what we can also point out here, that point of disassociation that we as humans tend to do, where there's a problem in the world and we all tend to disassociate ourselves from the problem and say, I didn't do it. Let's look at, even within these chats, I'm sure we're going to be doing that with regards to the pornography point, is you can always walk a timeline on taking a world problem as it is now and walking the timeline backwards, the creational timeline of how something was created. For example, we'll get to the point where we'll discuss the different timeline points of how and why somebody becomes a porn star. Now let's also look at, in this case of what are we seeing is getting worse in the world? Rape, objectification of women who have to go into sexualized roles for money. All of these things that are playing out as sexual abuse situations, if we walk those timelines backwards, we will see that the cause of it is occurring within all these points, like Miley Cyrus gyrating her body on stage, the stimulation that is being produced through the media for the production of money, all of those points that we can cover. And in tonight's chat, we are specifically looking at one of the creational points is how the pop culture is not taking responsibility, because what is not being understood but is being understood by them, as I mentioned earlier, is they know that children are looking towards them for self-definition, and they are banking on that. Yeah. So the timeline that you can always walk backwards throughout history, and that is actually quite cool, because even if people are going to comment on our blogs and vlogs and saying, oh, you guys are just talking crap or whatever, we can show them in our blogs and vlogs, as we are doing and will always do, we show them the timeline of events. And another point that I want to mention here quickly is, within criminal law, there's always a law for and around bad actions. For example, if I take a gun now and I walk into a public place and I wave it around, I'll get arrested for threatening the lives of others. There's laws for all types of things. A pedophile, if you're caught looking at child pornography, you're arrested. But we don't place the responsibility then equally on all parties responsible for accepting, allowing, and creating these abuse points in the future.
Yeah.
A point that I also...
Sorry, just to rewind a bit.
Sorry. I was just going to say that...
Go, Anna.
a point that is also not considered is that Miley Cyrus, as a human being here, as all other human beings, whether she's a celebrity or not, she's been programmed by the exact same brainwashing. She's watched the same music videos, the same celebrities. She's watched Madonna or whatever. So she's equally a product of that.
For the brainwashing.
Exactly, and then she just becomes a role model for the continuation of brainwashing instead of actually being able to be a human being that can stand out and step out and show that there's an alternative. So what were you going to say, Roselle?
I just wanted to rewind back to this VMA performance. I don't know, you know Robin Thicke's song that she collaborated with? It's quite a vibey song. It's got a cool beat to it, you know, and that kind of masks away the lyrics and actually the symbolism of that song specifically as well. Looking at the lyrics, I mean, there was actually one line I wrote down here. It says, "I'll give you something big enough to tear your ass into." Now that is part of the lyrics of Robin Thicke's song. That, you know, that's, you know, the song that where Miley was gyrating and twerking on top of him, whatever. This is the lyrics of songs in today's world that's playing on the radio that kids are listening to, and they're going, "Wow, this beat is awesome," and "Wow, I'm learning these lyrics." And then that's also another way that we are just accepting and allowing statements like this to be thrown around like it's cool, you know, and that it can be supported because it's got a cool beat. But really, look at the implications of that. Right there, you've got the defining description of what hardcore porn is like. And you've got this hardcore porn where, you know, women are actually literally being paid because they're a part of, subject to a money system which requires money, and they come from a, you know, difficult background. So porn is a way for them to survive. They go and do hard porn where men toss them around and literally do tear their asses open. It's no joke. This is happening, and here you have this guy with these lyrics, in the same breath making it cool, like, you know, "I will give you something big enough to tear your ass into." I mean, this is like, you know, this what's going on in today's, you know, pop culture. I mean, this is really unacceptable.
Ben, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, that's like the fact that that kind of violence is then presented sexually is also a whole other problem, because for the last several decades you've heard a lot of people, you know, it's the old thing again of there's too much violence in the media. But the fact that it's now broaching that kind of taboo point, and especially for young people, that's going to draw them into it, and that just blooms into all kinds of just, I mean, psychotic shit that will develop from sexualizing violence as kind of a shock attention grabber to make money.
So that's quite a contradiction.
That creates the market. Yeah.
It's quite a paradox that everywhere all we see is naked people or semi-naked people. All we hear about, all we talk about is sex, and yet still it's a taboo. So how does that work? What is that dynamic going on there? And it's quite fascinating. Are we about
I think it's that point of separation again. I think it's also that dimension of the point of separation where you'll find, you know, typical upstanding system person, working man will publicly say he's against that, but in his mind he will have secret mind participation within those pornographic scenes and actually get off on that. So it's again that point of separation where the taboo part is of, I don't want to fess up and say, hey, I've been doing it, but I'll blame you because, yeah, it's taboo. You're doing it's taboo. I think that's where that whole point of separation also comes from, where people are not taking responsibility of even what's going on within their own minds, and rather instead point fingers and blame. And I'm not saying everybody does it, but I'm saying, you know, that's partly, I mean, you know, that separation as well.
And I would say that in the chats to come, that will definitely be one or two chats on its own, is taking on the mind of the person who watches pornography, because a lot of times people read our blogs, watch the vlogs, and they're like, I don't get what you're saying. Why are you saying I'm responsible for sex being abused in this world? And in these chats and blogs and vlogs, we are going to walk the mind of the person who watches pornography to go and show, okay, are you able to see these thoughts exist? These justifications come up, the energy addictions that come up. everything that moves inside the mind that then comes up as a beingness and a presence as me going, yes, I want to watch pornography. It feels good. Everything else that is in the background that is busy justifying and talking in the mind to the person that makes it okay. And that's definitely something we should, I would say, be very specific with to support people when we get to the support aspect of these chats, because that is something that people really have a difficult time with, is to reconnect, to bring it back to self.
Yeah.
Cool, guys. We have already hit the 20-minute mark. I mean, it feels like we talked for 5 minutes because, I mean, this is, as you guys have also mentioned, is a vast topic. So we're going to continue talking about porn. I was almost about to say however long it takes, but basically that's what we're going to do. So join us again next Thursday. Do you guys have anything else? Any comments that you want to add here in the end?
Yeah, it's cool to be... It's cool to be specific about the justifications. I mean, I definitely agree with that.
Cool. And as we said also in the last hangout, there's a Desteni forum where you can go if you'd like support, if you're really ready and interested in asking for support in relation to porn or other addictions, for example. There's a blog, Porn Addicts Journey to Life, where a group of anonymous people are writing their experiences and how they're walking through the porn addiction. And there's the Facebook group Porn Alt Delete, where we're also posting the links to these hangouts. So there's no excuse. We're here, and you're able to join us, and there's support available. Thanks, guys, for joining us, and I'll see you guys next week.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye. Bye.